In a world that's just constantly buzzing with headlines, it's often the slower, deeper stories that really matter in the long run. Today, we're going to dig into three of them. Three incredible stories of economic survival and adaptation that show us what it really takes to bounce back when the pressure is on.
So what does resilience actually look like in the real world? It's more than just a buzzword, right? It's about how businesses, how whole communities, and even entire countries manage to pivot when they're staring down massive disruption. Let's get into it. So, here's what we're going to do. We're going to connect three stories that, on the surface, seem totally unrelated. A huge shift in global trade, a nationwide hunt for workers, and a city's rebirth from absolute catastrophe. And each one holds a really important clue about what it takes to adapt and ultimately to thrive. All right, so our first story kicks off with a massive geopolitical shift. As trade patterns move away from China, a whole new blueprint for a more connected North American economy is starting to take shape. But, and this is the big but, this opportunity is also packed with risk.
Yeah, this quote just nails it. It perfectly captures this huge trend called nearshoring. Companies, even Chinese ones, are moving their supply chains out of Asia and setting up shop in Mexico so they can be closer to the US market. It's such a big deal that people are actually calling it the Mexican moment.
At its heart, nearshoring is a really simple idea. Just make stuff closer to where you sell it. Now, this trend started decades ago, but today's geopolitical tensions are like pouring gasoline on the fire. It's accelerating like crazy and forging this incredibly powerful new economic bond between the US and Mexico. But it's not all sunshine and roses. The Council of Foreign Relations points out some serious risks that are making investors think twice. We're talking about potential judicial reforms, serious security problems, and the huge fact that the entire trade agreement is up for review in 2026. And that kind of uncertainty, well, it's a powerful brake on investment. So, what's a possible game plan here? Well, one really bold vision comes from a Canadian auto executive, Rob Wardor, and it's called Fortress North America. The whole idea is to build a truly seamless auto industry by getting rid of internal tariffs, making content rules tougher, and basically using penalties to keep major competitors out. It's a pretty radical blueprint for continental survival.
Okay, let's shift gears for our second story. We're moving from global supply chains to a problem that's a lot closer to home. A fundamental shortage of actual people to do the jobs that keep our economy humming.
Just look at that number, 30. In North Dakota, for every 100 jobs that are open, there are only 30 people looking for work. Think about that. It's the most severe worker shortage in the entire country, and it's a huge warning sign about a massive demographic challenge that we are all facing.
And this isn't just some abstract number on a chart. For Mike Arnson, a plant manager at a company called Cardinal Glass, this is his daily reality. Get this, a staggering 70% of his team was born outside the United States. His plea is just so simple and pragmatic. He just needs people to fill jobs.
So what's North Dakota doing about it? Well, they've done something pretty clever. They've basically sidestepped the heated national debate and created this unique state-run office. Its only job is to use legal immigration to connect companies that desperately need workers with people who are looking for jobs. It's a really practical adaptation to a very real economic problem. And look, this is not just the North Dakota problem. The national picture tells the exact same story. There are over 1 million more job openings in this country than there are people actually looking for work. Demographically speaking, the math just doesn't add up, and it's affecting nearly every single industry.
And this brings up another layer of complication, a policy called Temporary Protected Status, or TPS. It affects real people like Joseph Fleury, a worker at Cardinal Glass who's from Haiti. The thing is, his legal status, and that of many of his colleagues, is set to expire in 2026. So imagine you're an employer, already desperate for workers, facing the possibility of losing dozens of trained employees overnight. It would be a disaster.
All right, for our final story, we're turning to maybe the most powerful example of resilience you can imagine, a city that was almost completely erased from the map. We're talking about New Orleans, nearly 20 years after Hurricane Katrina brought it to its knees. I mean, it is hard to even wrap your head around the scale of it. 80% of the city was underwater. What happened next was one of the biggest rebuilding efforts in U.S. history. Over $120 billion in aid poured in. The city was literally rebuilt. But, as we're about to see, it is not the same place it was before. And this is where the story gets really complicated. The city today is actually smaller, with fewer people and fewer jobs than before the storm. But at the same time, that tragedy created a chance to rebuild some things better.
The school system, which was once ranked near the bottom in the nation, has seen these incredible double-digit gains in reading and math scores.
But here's the thing, that recovery didn't lift everybody up. A huge challenge that's still there is this shocking wealth gap. This chart tells a really tough story. White households have, on average, 10 times the wealth of black households. 10 times. It just goes to show you that even when you rebuild the buildings, deep economic inequalities can be left behind.
And this quote from Bernell Cotlin, man, this one just hits you. He runs the only grocery store in the lower 9th Ward. It just puts such a human face on all that data, you know? In the places that were hit the hardest, where the levees broke, recovery has been painfully slow, and once vibrant communities are now just shadows of what they used to be.
So where does New Orleans go from here? Well, the city knows it can't just rely on its old industries, like tourism and oil, which are actually losing jobs. The new vision for resilience is to pivot, to invest in growing fields where the city has some unique strengths, like biotech, tropical medicine, and carbon capture. Okay, so we've looked at shifting trade, we've looked at worker shortages, and we've looked at a city's incredible recovery. So what's the common thread? What can these three totally different stories teach us about being economically resilient?
A few clear things really connect all three of these stories. We saw that you just can't ignore the big external pressures, right? Whether it's geopolitics or demographics, these forces shape everything. We also saw that recovery really depends on the bedrock of community. And maybe the biggest lesson of all, uncertainty is just the new constant. And if you want to survive, you absolutely have to have a clear, forward-looking vision to navigate all the chaos.
And this leaves us with one final big question. We've seen how trade, demographics, and disaster are reshaping our world right now. But as the pace of change just gets faster and faster, what pressures are going to define the next great challenge, and what will that story of resilience even look like?